Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you all so much for joining. We are joined today with Alexis of Ascension Diaries YouTube channel. She is a 5D vlogger watching the Schumann resonance and celestial bodies, much like me and Michelle Wolf do on Tuesdays. So she's definitely in the right crowd. She is here to help surf the waves of change and build out into the new world, the new earth, in service, in love, and in light. So welcome to the program. How are you doing today, Alexis?
I'm doing wonderful, and thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to join in and get to chat with you and meet more of your audience, those of us who have the same sort of interest. I've just been searching for that crowd the past few years.
Yeah, it's awesome because I was just telling you right before we went on the air that I kind of feel like this connection node between like not only the different races being raised in a multiracial family, but I've moved into trying to bridge this gap between world views and beliefs and religions and things like that, and sort of being this connection node there. But also, when I was looking into you in this last interview you did with Peace Dealer, I realized that he had this huge following that I had no idea about. I ran across Angel from the Mile High podcast, and Aluna Ash was there, and a few of my viewers were there, and I'm like, there's this party going on I had no idea about. So I thought, man, I can bridge the gap between sort of these generations because you're like around the age of my oldest daughter, about a year older than my oldest daughter is. And for you to be awake and aware of what's going on is just so encouraging for me. So sort of, how did you get to this point of being aware and awake of everything going on around you?
Well, like I had mentioned, and we talked about before we went on, I have a lot to give thanks to my own mother, who is I think similarly a starseed, and she's had a lot of these experiences and psychic abilities since she was very young. And so when her research had been all into Dolores Cannon and you could really name any name. I'm sure she's read the book. Like, she is quite the researcher, and just growing up seeing me and what I'm going through and how similar, she's like, it's okay, honey. There's a whole world out there, and let's just enjoy it. So it's been a really fun time of me getting to explore my own and down my own paths, and now she's getting to see even new areas that I'm getting to jump into. So we've had a great fun time.
That's awesome. Okay, this is, I guess, a great question that, I'm glad it popped in my head right now. Was there ever a time that you sort of saw your mom as being a little too far out there and you didn't quite buy into it, and then at some point you're like, you know what, I see what she's talking about, because a lot of the people we talk to in our life seem like they're so asleep they'll never wake up. Was there ever a time like that for you?
To be honest with you, I don't think so, because I was always such a mystic person, but I've seen it. Like, she has 2 other children and, a husband, and I've watched them sort of kind of watch her and her abilities and realize that this is all sort of a thing, but also be able to just be like, that is their interest. That's what they like. That's their abilities. And I'm going to pursue my own path. And it's been a really healthy experience to just kind of watch and be like, yeah, we all kind of get to choose what we want to do, but there's no way that they can deny the sort of mystic side of things, because they've seen it from her and now from me.
So cool. So did you inherit any of her psychic abilities or anything?
I hope so. I definitely have inherited her deep love for like the universe and the ET side of things and the starseed side of things, for sure. And her abilities kind of err on being able to hold someone's hand and sort of get pictures and downloads about them, and even hearing things from passed on loved ones. And I've seen her have these experiences and be able to do these things. And I have yet to kind of bridge that much of an intimate sort of physical experience. But when I do tarot readings and work with people and get to know them better, I get a lot of downloads about them and about, their life and how powerful they are and their secret abilities. And I have my own thing going on for right now.
That's awesome though, because it dawned on me, like, I don't know, maybe a couple of days ago, it just sort of hit me. It was one of those downloads, and I realized that we are all channeling in our own way. I mean, it might not be like, we watch these channels that sort of bring in like a star family or something, and we start talking for them. That's one form of channeling, and we typically think of that as that's channeling, but I get these downloads of information, insights, and intuition that I can tell didn't originate in my brain. I mean, they came from somewhere outside, beyond me, and I do it. You hear about automatic writing as sort of another form, and I realized I do that in comments a lot. Like a lot of times, I'll get a comment, I'll get triggered by it, and I'll be like, okay, relax, and I'll have to take a deep breath and get out of ego, because a lot of times, I'll get the same comment over and over again, typically religious, and I'll get triggered a little bit, and I have to catch myself and say, they're where they're at right now on their journey or whatever. And then I sort of get into this meditative state to think of how I'm going to respond. And a lot of times I think I respond in a channeled sort of way, you know what I mean? Like intuition kicks in and I leave the message and lead them to the information that they really need at that moment. So not only coming on the air like this and talking to people is important, but not getting triggered and just leaving a nasty comment back to someone is also important, that I take that time to really take each person as a new comment and not sort of get tired of seeing the same comment over and over again. So I think it's really cool that it just hit me all at once that I'm already channeling in a way with information and stuff. So that's cool.
Right. And that's some sage advice for someone else in the YouTube community for sure. Being like, I like the way you said that. It's like every comment is a new comment. And I find that I'm glad you mentioned it, because for sure the writing and I did most of my stuff through my blog on Facebook first, and then I moved into the YouTube world. And so I was doing a lot of responding in discussion and writing things. And so definitely the channeling I started was with writing. And it's crazy how you're like, how did I even write that? And it just comes through you and you're like, wow, that is a perfect answer.
I've been amazed because I didn't even realize this until I realized a few days ago that a lot of times I'll have a scripture pop in my head and I'm like, oh, and it's like, how did I remember that scripture? And I'll look it up and double check it and stuff. And then I'll put it in there, hey, check John 8 for this or whatever. And I'll make sure it was the right scripture. But yeah, it'll pop in my head and I'm like, how did I remember that scripture? That's strange but now I know it was all part of the channeled message I was to deliver to that person at that time. So it's really cool to see all this stuff starting to develop and to see it's been happening all the time, all along, but I just didn't realize it. You know what I mean? So that's pretty cool. So you do tarot readings, and how long have you been doing that with the tarot cards?
I'm pretty new to it. I think I've been working on it the last year, and it's interesting because my discussion with Michael, the peace dealer, the other night, he was asking me about my astrology, and I'm not, again, like I am very interested. I've known about it since I was very young, but it's never really, it's never really clicked. I've never gotten downloads like you're getting with scripture, which is pretty cool. I really admire you for that, because that's pretty awesome. And yeah, so he was like, oh, you have a Pisces rising and you're a Libra sun and your moon is Aquarius. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? It's basically like, oh, you're able to do a lot of channeling and you're able to like reach up into those other levels. And I was like, okay, cool. He's like, you're probably very talented at your tarot reading. And I have been very lucky, I guess, to be very accurate with the way I'm able to channel in and get out of these random cards that I have, be able to pull up a message that really hits people to their core. And it's been incredible to watch, because you can do therapy with somebody for years and never get to that core thing. And then you're like, okay, cards, show me what we should talk about today. And that's sort of what I combine it with my therapy background. And then what comes up, people are just like, oh, and they get emotional. And it's incredible. I've seen other people practice and do the same thing. And I was like, wow, this is a really, really interesting modality to reach people past their human self.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's really cool. And to see it start to just work and see it in action, that's pretty cool too. So I sent you an email. I asked you about doing a live reading, and I don't know if you are interested in doing that, or if you want to push the envelope or push the your abilities. But is that something that, because this is something you offer people, right?
It's true. I do. I offer this to people. If they pledge to me on Patreon, like just $50, I will meet with them once a month, and we will do a tarot reading together, and go dive into their progress. And I've taken on sort of a coach role as well, and
That's
so
cool.
it's been really nice. It's been a really healthy way to keep people accountable for what they want to progress through. And so I would love to see what cards we get. I have my Angel Tarot deck, which actually has the words and pictures on them. So it's a much easier flowing deck for doing live streams and stuff. So I would be honored to see what cards pop out of the deck and see what you respond to that, and see what comes up with those things that happen. So
It's be interesting, because I'm a noob to all of this stuff as far as tarot cards, and all I know about it is the law of one stuff, which it approached it from a kind of a different perspective, But so I know about it from that, and I've looked through them and tried to figure out the little pictures in it. But I know the decks are different. I know there's different decks, and the one you're dealing with is different than the law of one deck, right? The angel deck.
oh my gosh, I would love a Law of One deck. Maybe I should just see if they have any on Amazon or something. I feel like you can print it off somewhere, but that's definitely one I would love to work with. But this is
cool.
different. This is different. This is obviously along the classic sort of the houses and the elements or whatever that they have. So it's modeled after the same sort of classic model, but they're more artistic. They're more angel-like, and they have really beautiful artwork. It's probably my favorite part as an artist. I'm just like, this art is just, there's unicorns, there's angels, there's mermaids. It just satisfies me.
I like that. That's cool.
I
like the rainbows and all the colorful stuff too. I'm an artist too, though. So
well, there you go. Exactly. We can appreciate it. I hope I'll show you the best I can the cards that we get for you, and you can see what beautiful photograph or image you get, as well as the message.
That's awesome. Okay.
So I guess I can begin.
Is there anything I need to do, or you need to know my birth date or any? No, I don't know.
All I need to know is your first name, and I've already got that handled. So okay. I'm just going to, what classically that tarot readers do is they will knock the deck kind of like a door to be like, we clear the energy of this deck and we're starting fresh. And then I tend to like place it up against my heart like this and do a little invocation or a prayer or an intention. So I will say, dear source, please give me cards for the mind, body, spirit complex of Sean. We would like to bring forward a message so we can have a wonderful discussion about himself and tarot and magic of all things on this lovely show with everyone. So I'm going to shuffle, and whatever pops out, we will discuss. So
I need a drum roll sound effect.
We'll see. Dear source, thank you for the cards today. And sometimes they just fly out, and I'm a little nervous. So it's kind of like, okay, we got to focus, because channeling is difficult, because you kind of have to get to that point where your mind and your body are kind of out of the way.
I totally understand that. Yeah.
So it's fun to, okay. I got one.
All right.
Let's see what it is. So I'm going to show it to you. And this one has a lovely, looks like some fairy being. There's money involved. So it's the Queen of Earth. You've received the Queen of Earth. So it says, make time for those around you. Take a sensible approach. Deal with challenges in a kind and understanding manner. So that is How does that
That's
make you feel?
that's appropriate because I found out today is moving day. I have to help my daughter move this evening, so that definitely goes right along with some of my my new commitments that I've been volunteered to do, which I'm totally happy to do it. So yeah,
Well,
that's good.
it's good that it's like a physical thing that you have to do, because when it's an earth sign, or the pentacles, as some people know it, it's all about more things in like the physical world that are happening. So that makes a lot of sense that, you're going to be making some time for people around you, and dealing with challenges, and moving is always fun. So
Yeah, I
best of
told her I'd
luck,
like.
all the strength for you on that one, because
Yeah, I told her I said happy moving day.
But yeah, that's sort of how it works. See, it's pretty simple and it's fun, because people are like, oh, that's because of this. And you're like, oh, cool. I would have never known that about you if I didn't have this random card fall out of my deck.
Yeah, that is really neat.
And I have another one that's come out, and it's the Knight of Fire. And this one's fun. So it's a swift moving energy. Something is coming in quickly for you, a sudden event that needs immediate attention. So time is of
Wow,
the
that gave me chills for what I've been dealing with. For those that noticed, I wasn't in the air yesterday because I'm working on something, a video, an upload video that. So I have been working, although I wasn't here on live stream. It was because I'm working behind the scenes, doing investigation to present something of urgency, just like you said. So that gave me chills when you just said that. That's amazing.
That's awesome. I see, and it's like people will have these reactions, and I'm just like, yes, like it fills me up with the magic too. It's just so nice to get to share that sort of magic with other people.
And there is an urgency to it too. So that's amazing.
Yeah, this is definitely like the things are happening fast. We got to get things moving. So
I like
that's
that.
awesome. But yeah, it's simple like that. Do you want to see if one more comes out? We'll see what else. Dear Source, if there's anything else you'd like us to discuss on the show today, let me know with shooting a card out of my deck, or I will pull one. Oh, and there goes two. Okay, last ones. Ooh, this is fun. Okay, so we got the Six of Water, which is the Six of Cups. And there's a little mermaid child and a bunch of cups underwater. And this.
Whoops. Sorry, you froze on me. Are you still there? Check 1, 2. Okay, just at this point, I make a mental note. The Six of Cups. That's where we got cut off at. See if Alexis can come back. Let me make sure it's... Okay, yeah, it's not me. Connection's good. We've had some storms here, so I wasn't sure, but I'm broadcasting to my other computer and then to YouTube. So it's working so well on this end, but who knows what's happening between me and Alexis. She is in Canada, I believe. So that was pretty interesting, because see, I've never been in the tarot or astrology or any of that. For those of you that might not have been with me for a while, I was raised in Christianity, so that was like a no-no. But so I just never really got into it, even when I was sort of more open to things like that later in life. I just never really got into it too much, but it's definitely interesting. Let me see if I can. Thank you. Yeah, she dipped out. Maybe she'll be able to reconnect. There we go.
I'm sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. Okay, so it disconnected on the 6 cups or 6.
Okay, cool.
Cups
Okay, I
part.
was like, oh, and there goes my whole computer. It just shut itself off. It was crazy.
This
Nice.
must be an important message, right?
Oh, I guess so. The suspense.
Like, he's getting too much information here. Shut her down.
Shut it down. Oh man, I hope not. So let's see. The Six of Cups is mentioning that there are memories from your history, from your childhood, potentially issues regarding children, but it's about your past and about childhood and perhaps romanticizing your past. So that was one of them. How does that make you feel?
I have been thinking about childhood a lot lately.
Okay, fair enough. And you're going to be working with your child today very intimately, so
Yeah.
all those memories may be coming back to you, flooding back to you perhaps today. Can be teaching you something about that. I guess we'll see. That's another thing too. It's kind of like, okay, this is happening right now, so we'll see how it works out. But the next card you got, in the last card you got, is pretty great. And it's the King of Earth, which is the king of the material world, and it's a successful time. It's a confidently accept opportunities. You have the Midas touch, basically. So he's just a fairy king on the throne here, just rocking it. So it's a good message for you.
Awesome. Yeah, you know what? After you started to tell me about that card, you just brought back a memory of a dream I had last night that I completely forgot about. So maybe I need to re-explore that. It was about my parents, who are both passed away at this point, by the way, but it was, I don't know. I just vaguely remember it. So I need to sort of, I guess, sit on that, meditate on it, and see what else comes back to memory about a dream I had. So that's interesting that it triggered the thought of a dream I had last night about my parents.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it really
Maybe
is.
that's why they shut off my computer.
Yeah, so I need to, when I meditate, a lot of times I'll do that. I'll just try to go back to the dream and see how much I can pull out if it feels like it was important. And it did. It felt like it was important, but I hadn't remembered it until just then. So that's cool. So that's weird how it's sort of like synchronicities, you know what I mean? It's just,
Yep.
you can say it was just coincidental that card came out and triggered a memory, or you can realize that there's something deeper going on, which I truly believe there is. I don't believe in coincidences at all at this point. You know, I was like the pressing issue I was just telling you about last night. Last night it came to mind, and like sort of I had all these thoughts collided in one moment, and while I'm thinking, I'm like, I wonder if this is what I should pursue. And I looked down and it was 1212. So
Ooh.
then I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like that. I always think about what I'm thinking about when I get a synchronicity, right? So then I tell my son, I'm like talking to my son about it and explaining it all to him, like what all came to my mind. And then I get done, and towards the end, and I said, and when I looked at the clock and I got the synchronicity, and then I looked and it was 12:34. So 1, 2, 3, 4, which
Yes.
is 22 minutes later, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's the chances? And I don't know how many times I've said something about a synchronicity and I look at the clock and there it is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. They're my favorite, truly. I don't know what I would do without the fact that we have digital clocks around. My boyfriend, he likes it when the hands align, like they overlap on his analog watch. So that's another
Yeah.
fun one. But they're beautiful, and that's why I got into tarot too, because I have quite a balance between a logical sort of mathematical physics mind and the artistic side. And I was like, okay, it's kind of like a hack in the matrix if you give all of these possibilities and it's some sort of divine hand allowing that one outcome to reach you, and then the probability of that happening and then continuing to happen over and over is just so incredibly vast that you're like, okay, there's something going on here.
Do you feel like it's ramping up in your life? Like more synchronicities?
Oh yeah, like it's been pretty. I've had times where literally all day long and for days in a row, every time I look at a clock, it's a synchronicity. And it's just constant, like a constant feedback loop between my environment, my matrix, and me. And it's like it's just talking and working with me. Like my phone will ding when I'm saying something, or that's a fun one I've been getting a lot lately. And my family too, they're just like, huh, because I'm like, my computer just agreed with me. I'm right. But
It's funny, yeah. And I think that, there's other people that'll look at us and think, you guys are crazy. That's
of
just a
course.
coincidence, but I see it as something deeper going on, definitely.
And the funnest part is to then go, okay, and you listen to the synchronicity and you take it as a hint, and then you make that choice, and then things continue to go well. And you're like, okay, this tactic is working for me.
Yeah, and then the confirmations always cool. Like the confirmation I just got from the card you pulled
Yeah.
that I'm on the right track. That was sort of a synchronicity, and that's how I look at them. And then while I was explaining it to my son last night, he pointed something out in the game, and some game he's been playing. He goes, "Oh, that's like in the game I'm playing, where this is this," and then he's explaining something, and it's something he just came across in one of the games he's playing, and it was like that's sort of another confirmation. It's exactly like
Yeah.
an archetype of what I'm going through right now. So it's pretty cool the way it's all connected. When you begin to see these connections, you're like, how can this all be connected like this? But it
Mhm.
is. It's like it gives you that feeling of it being a simulation or a matrix or something, coordinated, orchestrated in an incredible way, that you just can't be explained once you begin to see it at a deeper level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. The more you get into it, the less you can kind of explain it. And you're just like, it's just reality now. This is how we live.
Exactly. So you do artwork. What kind of art do you do? Is that one of your pieces behind you?
No, this is definitely a giant piece from the lovely IKEA
Oh,
uh,
nice.
from a few years back. But I've been doing a lot of painting, but my biggest medium and my favorite thing to work with is memes, to be honest with you.
That's cool, though.
And making I just have a wicked sense of humor, and I find that sometimes the best way to kind of get over this information and synchros and all these weird experiences you begin to have more and more is by making the jokes and just sharing. And there's just so many wildly funny things that people are creating about all of this and this consciousness and, synchronicities and angels and, soul journey and stuff. And it's so fun to get to be in part of that creative community too. And that's what I do on my Instagram. That's the only thing I want to make right now is memes, it seems like, but they're hilarious and I just love it.
That's awesome. That's great that someone's out there with like a positive attitude creating memes, because there's so many, dark or not very funny
So
memes.
many. It's crazy.
So my kids are always repeating stuff, and um, it really does stick in people's heads, and it's something people like to share because it sort of strikes a chord, and so then they share it around. So I'm not really big on Instagram. I created an account, and I posted like a double rainbow picture, like when I first, because it was like on a phone I had just got, and it was like installed automatically, and I don't think I've done much since then. But every now and then I'll say somebody started following you on Instagram, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that Instagram account. So I need to get on there and start doing a little bit more with it. It's nice though, because I consider younger generation, you're really connected socially with all the accounts, and and I'm just not, I'm right in between there, where it's like I've got the account but I forget about it and I don't do much, and most of the things I do are automatic. Like when I go live, it put a notification on there for me and stuff like that. So a lot of my interactions on there, I don't really even get on Facebook much. It's like everything that gets posted is sort of an automatic thing, or I do it from YouTube, post this to Facebook or YouTube or Twitter and things like that. So I need to be better about it. That's why I tell people email is the best way to get a hold of me, because I saw some messages from like 4 months ago on Facebook, and I was like, oh my gosh, these people think I just ignore them and stuff. I just don't get on Facebook very much, you guys. And I didn't notice the little dot means that there's a message. So
Oh
I'm
my
feeling
God, my aunt said that to me the other day. I was like, yes, check out those little dots. They're surprises for you.
and I thought it was new, and I was like, oh my gosh, from April. And I'm like, I'm sorry, and I had to send out like 3 I'm sorry messages in a row, just because I don't keep up very, very good with it. So okay, so I always like to ask my guest about the Mandela effect, right? Because this is sort of the thing that woke me up to the fact that reality is not at all what we were told it was. I had to go back to the chalkboard, clear it off, and say, all right, let's figure out what the heck is
Wow.
going on. So that's sort of why I congregate with older people, because most of the older people have so many memories that's changed. But a lot of younger people, it seems like they're like, I don't know, or whatever. But it also, at the same time, it seems like the younger generation are more easily they can believe that it's happening more easily than older people that don't see it. It's like, yeah, I see it happening, you know, but it's not as big of a deal as it is to the older generation. That's like, oh my gosh, reality is changing. I know this was this way and it's not anymore. So what's some of do you have any big Mandela effects?
I think two of the like more popular ones for sure. And I just wanted to say it was 1, 2, 3, 4 when you were asking me that the time. I was like, oh, but for sure the actual death of Nelson Mandela, and that I realized I really thought that he had died, and I don't even know how I had that information in my brain, because again, I was so young when I was hearing and learning about this, and it didn't impact me as much because I didn't know much about his living life, to be
Right.
fair. But that was for sure one where I was like, all right, something's definitely, what the heck is this about? And then it was the We Are the Champions song by Queen
Oh yeah.
that got
That's
me.
that's wild.
The ending, I'm just like, where's the end? And I would show people, I'm like, don't you remember that this ended different? And they're like, yeah, what the heck? And I'm just like, I don't understand. This is the original recording. It just, what's going on? And it was a fun moment. There's a few others that I'm like, okay, I can see that. But I think the Mandela effect is really, really helpful. Like you were mentioning, like I couldn't even imagine how many people have been like turned on and flicked into a whole awareness because they were like, wow, I totally remembered history different.
Yeah, changes, impossible, seemingly impossible changes to our reality. I
Yeah.
think it is a big wake up call for those who actually see it happening. You know, it's like, wow, what the heck, you know? And it's like, then you go and do a little research. You actually take a vacation to go see the Thinker statue because you just can't believe, you think maybe they altered all the pictures online or whatever. But no, it's really always been that way. And the trippy thing, I don't know if you've seen this, the Thinker statue, I had one and the fist was to the forehead. And I had one like on my desk growing up, a little just desk size one that's like, I don't know, 8 inches tall or whatever. And you can find pictures of people posing next to it with their fist to their forehead, yet the statue has changed. That's some of the trippiest residue that you can see. There's one with like 18 softball students, like ages maybe 8 to 11, looking, you know, softball girls or whatever, and they're all posing next to it with their fist to their forehead, yet he's sitting there like with his hand on his, you know, mouth, chin
Weird.
area, you know. Yeah, it's really weird because
I haven't heard of that one.
yeah, that's a pretty trippy one. And the Mona Lisa, she's like smiling now more. She used to be sort of, it was like kind of a smirk. It was really difficult to say, well, she's kind of smiling, she's kind of not, but now she's clearly smiling. And that's another sort of a creepy one. I don't know if you've seen that one or not.
Well, I've been actually gotten to see the Mona Lisa in person. So you've gotten to see that statue. I went and saw it, and it's an incredible experience too, because it's just in this massive room on one wall that just like, it was just kind of like a rectangular wall in the middle. And there's just a billion people around it. And you're like, the painting's not very big.
Right. Yeah, I heard that it's actually quite small.
Yeah, it's like this big. You're like, okay. There's just seas of people like coming in to take a photograph of it. It's crazy, but I don't even remember seeing it. I just got barely close enough to see it. So
Right. How
just
close? I mean, how long ago was it when you saw it?
I was that was 4 years ago.
Oh, okay. So it might have been before the change. I don't know. And
Maybe.
then that's different for different people. But yeah, it's she's clearly smiling now, and her eyes. She actually looks stoned a little bit now. Her eyes are a little bit more, you
Really?
know. Yeah, she looks like it looks like somebody took a time machine back, smoked a doobie with her right before they did
The
the
painting.
the painting. Yeah, which is hilarious. So,
I mean,
yeah.
sit that long, I feel like you would need to really.
Yeah, because I'm sure they had to sit there a while back then, right? There's another one that you might be aware of that just from an artistic standpoint,
Yeah.
the American Gothic painting where the couple is standing there, the farmer with the fork and
Yep.
his wife, and they used to both be facing straight forward, and now the wife's head is looking to the left, like you know, like a 3/4 view, where they were both facing the camera, or you know, the point of view of the person looking at the picture or whatever. So yeah, her head's turned now. But the funny thing is, I got messages early on about all of this, and it was like the divine feminine was looking to the masculine. That was sort of this repeating theme I got through a lot of the changes when I looked into the meaning behind why they were changed and what they were pointing to and stuff like that. And it sort of was pointing at where we've gone wrong as a society. And that was, we sort of forced the divine feminine to look more towards the masculine, and we've, suppressed the divine feminine. And that got into the right versus left brain thing with the thinker statue. He used to look with his third eye, the right brain. Now he's sort of staring out of his eyes at the floor. So it's really interesting the way, I kind of got these messages early on that I felt were like a revelation, if you will, of what's going on. It's pretty cool. Is she affected by the Mandela effect? Have you ever talked to her about it?
To be honest with you, I don't think we've had a full-on conversation about it, but we for sure have talked about it, and I'm sure she's watched a few episodes on Gaia or on YouTube or whatever about it, read a book. I wouldn't be surprised at all. She loves all of this stuff so much.
That's cool. So let's get into some of the stuff you do on your channel, because I was watching a video the other day where you were discussing the Schumann and sort of these waves coming off the sun. And I just thought it was great because you had all these screenshots or, you go through a lot of the equipment out there that's available where you can see these, I don't want to say coronal mass ejections, what are they? Sun flares just coming off. And so, yeah, and you could tell how they affect us. So you've really sort of drawn this connection between when you see these things, when you start experiencing some of the symptoms, and when you start seeing the Schumann going off. How did you sort of come across all this information and start connecting the dots with that?
To be honest with you, I would have to say the first thing that primed me for this was my psychology degree and going in there and learning that, a lot of factors from your environment are very, very effective on your lived experience. And then I learned about the Schumann resonance totally randomly. I know it was on Facebook. Someone posted one of the Russian site graphs somewhere, and it was like, like my whole brain exploded. And I was just like, this is what people need there. I knew there was more to this. And I was like, there's so many more environmental factors affecting us with waves of energy, which is mixing up our own brain waves and our heart geomagnetic heart field. And I knew about all these things, and I knew that we could cause problems with our own thoughts and things like that, and depression and things. But I was like, there's so much more to this than we were understanding, and we're so sensitive to our environment. So it was really cool to begin watching the Schumann resonance, and then how I felt and how I watched the world sort of react, like in what happened in the news that day and what happened in the community I had already been in on Facebook, the sort of starseed community, the empathic spiritual people I had found myself around. And it just started to grow and grow, and realizing that there's other things happening, and the astrology and what the planets are doing are also effective, and what is the sun giving off that day, and then how is the earth's own field kind of behaving. And so just sort of connecting those dots with our own brain waves and our own heart and the physical sort of electric universe we're in.
Yeah, that's really cool because I don't know if you know the channel Mr. MBB333, but he does a
Yes.
lot of information on that. And he was talking about how all the planets were sort of in this 180-degree section of the travels around the sun, and how like all of us being on one side is going to have like this greater pull on just the earth, just the gravity all sort of pulling one sided, and that we can expect big earthquakes. And then sure enough, we just had this big earthquake happen. And I'm like, wow, that's just so crazy that it's all connected in such a way. Because who would think that planets, I know they cover this in astrology all the time. So they're like, yeah, we've done this forever. You know what I mean? That the whole retrograde thing, and that's when it looks like it's going backwards from the way you're both moving or something like that. And
Right.
so I know like just the basic stuff about it, but when people are like, oh, your computer is acting up because they'll talk about a planet's doing something weird or something, and I'm like, oh, okay. So and like people know this stuff, it's like common knowledge amongst certain people that's been following this for a while. It's like after a while you begin to see these patterns repeating. It's like
Yes.
So that's weird. That's strange. Is it strange to you, or are you beginning to start to see how it works?
Well, I have my moments where I'm like, is this what I'm studying even really happening? Or am I just like having a bad day? But then I go on there and I'm like, is everybody having a tired day today? And perhaps it's because of this solar wind we just got hit with. And everyone's like, yes, like I get people who also disagree too. Like it's not 100%. And that was the hardest thing. I was trying to narrow it down to be like everyone has this particular experience during this soup of movement going on, but I noticed that it's also unique. People have unique responses, and it's I don't know how I could possibly get enough factors to make proper predictions for people and patterning, but watching the grand patterns I noticed throughout the year when the Schumann resonance goes off, the highest is this last year was in March, and I noticed it had done the same thing the year before. So there's something with March, and I'm excited to see what the readings are going to be in October because in this pursuit, I've also gathered a bunch of people who are channelers and are accessing, getting downloads about all these energy waves and stuff coming in. And I'm like, I want to be able to put it all together and see if I can find, that enough of a argument to say that this is actually potentially, affecting our whole planet and that this is happening and this is going on and there's a shift going on. So
So, what other symptoms do you have that you can attribute to, the whole ascension process?
the one thing I find that is the most kind of disrupting to me, and I'm having personally my hardest time with, is that some days I feel like I can't come into reality. I'm stuck. Like I've just like been blasted off into somewhere. My brain waves are maybe like permanently stuck in like gamma waves or something. And I'm just like, I don't know. It struggles to sort of be in a 9 to 5 or be able to focus on a project. And it's hard some days when you're like, what is the problem with me? Like what is going on? And again, as a younger person and understanding that perhaps I have a sensitivity to these things more than others. I don't know, but it's
Well, I think just the older people are just like, "Ah, I'm just getting old. I'm feeling really tired today." And you just write it off as just getting old, or something along those lines. And I think I think a lot of things for the older people are just they think of it as being, you
age.
know, yeah, age. Even with the Mandela effect, that's why I was like, man, I've got to get this out, because if I was old and I started noticing reality changing, I'd be thinking, oh my God, I'm getting senile, or something. You know what I mean? It'd be like,
Yes.
it'd be horrible. I wouldn't want to tell people, like, they're going to put me in a home if I start sharing the fact that I
Mhm.
remember 4 people in the JFK car or whatever. Just some major events have changed. And it's like, for people who notice it, but they don't know about the Mandela effect, I can imagine it being scary, because they're going to think they're going senile, or, what's the Alzheimer's disease or whatever. It's like, oh, man, it's a trip. So yeah, and I've experienced the same thing. I think you were watching when I was talking to Michelle Wolf on Tuesday, that I was dealing with the same thing, just having this
Yes.
difficult time getting out of the in between state of feeling like I'm in dream world and in
Yeah.
reality. And yeah, I can totally see. So that's actually encouraging that, you're, what are you, 25 now, or
Yeah,
almost
I'm going to be 25 in October, so
Oh, okay. So yeah, 25, and you're dealing with it. That's a breath of fresh air, actually, for a lot of people, I'm sure.
I know, and it's weird because I'm like, okay, am I just creating a psychosis where we all think something's happening to us, but it's not? But whatever it is, I feel like it's been overall very helpful, giving people that sort of relief that, there is other factors at play to your health, to your well-being, to your daily experience that potentially are much more cosmic and don't get talked about. You don't go to a doctor and they're like, well, that's solar wind yesterday. It's probably why you're feeling this way. So I just wanted to be able to offer that as a rebuttal, sort of, and an opportunity and a potential that this may be why you're having this experience, and it seems to be going well. I'm trying to do
Yeah, I
it
think so.
responsibly.
It's going slow, but I noticed in some of your videos you were talking about that sense of urgency that you feel when you feel
Yep.
like you need to help the transition happen faster, and it just doesn't seem to happen fast enough. But then at the same time, when I look back, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, like, for instance, I just realized that 2 days ago was the solar eclipse. A year had passed since the solar eclipse of last
Yes.
year, and I'm like, oh my god, it's been a year. Dude, it just doesn't seem like a year ago to me,
It
and it's like when
flew.
I think about it in those terms, it's like just mind blowing that it's been a year. But moving forward, it seems like it just doesn't move very fast. So it's weird that forward seems slow, looking back seems super fast, and it's something weird going on with time as we transition out of time, I think, is what's happening.
I think so too. And that's another reason why I was tracking it, because I was like, if these other theses and like these theories about this shift are true, then there's got to be some way I can track it. And so it's so far the theory is that the energy is coming in stronger and more often and things are shifting. So it seems to be going well. Maybe not stronger, but it's consistent for sure and causing ripples in the collective consciousness in the planet and my own self where I'm just like, can't get out of bed.
Yeah, and I've had that too, where you just feel like it's like, I don't know, all of a sudden you feel like I've just got to take a nap. This is horrible, and
Yeah,
everything just gets so heavy all of a sudden. A lot of times I'll look and the Schumann is having one of those spikes at that moment, and it's
right.
like, wow, I'm really feeling whatever this heaviness is, and so I tell everybody, don't push it, just go lay down, because maybe it's an upgrade you need at that moment. I know it's hard to do if you're working a 9 to 5, but um, I don't know. It's like I can't see myself staying awake like that, because I've even had coffee and it's like nothing can help pull me out of it other than going and taking a little nap.
Agreed. Agreed. And it's even, when you're younger too and your peers, are like, what's your problem? It's kind of like, I can't move.
I can't move. I can't think. All I can do
I
is just go lay down.
I can't move. I can't think. I am seeing. And then maybe your third eye gets more active. So I'm seeing fractals and I'm seeing things going on. And I haven't ingested anything to imply that this should be my experience. So it's kind of like my way to be like, hey, it's not just me.
Right. So have you noticed an uptick in your dreams, or what's your dream life like, I should say?
My dream life it's definitely getting more interesting. I've been noticing I've been having a lot of dreams where I'm more lucid, and it's almost like I've taken this reality, but I've popped over to a different one, but I have all the same setting and there's similar people and I navigate it pretty well, but it just feels eerily like I'm awake, but I'm not awake. And then I wake up and I'm like, I just did all these interactions and walked this room and all through the house and did this with you and you and you. And there's a house full of people doing stuff. And I've been noticing that a lot lately. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had a dream. I was walking to the store, like looking for my wife, and a hanger got caught on my foot, and just weird stuff that just, it seemed really, I don't want to, I want to say normal, but it wasn't normal, but it seemed normal at the time. And my wife's like, oh, we got to get out of here because I got to go to work. And I'm trying to find her in the store. And then I wake up and realize I've already taken her to work. And why was I in the middle of this department store? And it was sort of like the cares of the world get carried over into your dream state and then get mixed in with a bunch of other real life things. It's just strange. So I don't really know. It didn't feel like I was in some sort of other world. Like sometimes I feel like I'm training with other star seeds and or
Yeah.
learning to fly or doing something interesting like that, but it wasn't like that. So,
I
but I
like those
did have
dreams
that feeling
better.
though. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, pulling over, having this in between of real life into the dream state that you were talking about. I have been getting a lot of those too, where it's like they don't seem like there's any meaning with it, but um, who was it that was? I think it was Jim Self was talking about we go through this layer of thought forms as we're passing from the other world
Okay.
and back into our body during dream state, and because we're out of time, they get all mixed and jumbled together. So that I think that could be what was happening, something along those lines. Do you meditate regularly?
Hmm.
Do you get visuals at those times, or?
I think visuals aren't as common, and I've had guided meditations where it's gotten pretty awesome, and I'll get the visuals. But by myself, I mostly just get like information, and I just hear. I get ideas and inspirations and about what I want to talk about and write about and make videos about, and it's nice, but it's definitely been the practice I've had to really get in every single day. It definitely wasn't like that even just recently, but it's that's the message I've been hearing from almost everybody who's been channeling anything. Like if you want to improve and you want to keep going, you got to meditate every day, and that's the bottom line. So I'm like, okay, I got to do it, and I've been encouraging all of my the people who I work with to do it too, and we've been noticing a big
Yeah, I've been
difference.
trying to adjust my diet as well and take meat out. I don't know,
Nice.
going on like a week now because I'm
Good job.
trying to do anything at all to sort of help the process along and bring my abilities online, however they operate, and just doing what I can from my position, you know. But it's like I get the same thing. And when we were talking about that sort of in between, that having a difficult time being in reality and just feeling real dreamy, even when you should be
Hmm.
in the moment. When I try to meditate like that, it seems like it would be better, but it's actually like
It's
it's
harder.
it's harder. Yeah, it seems like it would be better to be sort of in this dreamy thing, but I find myself thinking about stuff and having a hard time focusing on not focusing on anything. You know, so it's kind of weird, and I don't know if it's like that for you or not.
It's been the weirdest space to sort of, you know, get feeling balanced. Like I'm such a Libra. I'm like, I need balance. I need it happening. I need to be balanced. I need it to be fair. And so I'll do all the things. I'll meditate, I'll exercise, I'll eat, like give myself all the nutrients, I'll shower, I'll stretch, I'll do all these things. And it's like you just can't break out of it. And it's so weird. And I had that experience just this last weekend where it was pretty intense, but I kind of have an idea why it may have been happening. There was a big conference a lot of my friends were at, and I feel like I was just like, so my brain was just over there working with all these people or something. I just couldn't figure it out, but it was really hard. And I was like, how am I going to keep up with my work? And how am I going to keep creating? I don't have any inspiration or nothing. But I think it was definitely a test to be like, these moments are, it's okay. They will pass. Just, take care of yourself first. And the meditation eventually does help. Like you really, I have to commit to it. But after about 20, 30 minutes, you're like finally start to get your breathing and your, I'll feel more in my body.
Yeah, when I heard you talking in the video about your friends at some event, I can't remember now, but the thought came to my mind about quantum entanglement. You know how like,
Yeah.
they pulled part of you there with them. You know what I mean? It's because
Yeah.
just having that relationship, and I think that it happens all the time, like with mothers and daughters. It's like a mom and know her daughter's in trouble for some reason, and it's like these connections we have that are invisible, but it's like we can sense each other's vibration, I guess, when we're around them, and we become entangled with people that we have a closer relationship with. And so, yeah, when you were saying that, I was like, I can totally see that being the case, pulling. And that was sort of like Eileen said she went to some event and she felt like maybe her dog got pulled with her. And it's the same thing. You have these connections with your pets, you know what I mean? And she had to go on the trip and leave her dog behind. But, we're all really connected, and time and space is all really an illusion. So once you realize that, it's not that far fetched to imagine that they sort of pulled you with them, which is kind of cool if you think about it.
It was pretty cool. And I had multiple comments being like, we feel like you're here right now. And I'm like, I must be because I don't know where the heck else I'd be. Like, I'm not here. I'm trying, but I'm somewhere else right now. And it was nice to know that I was somewhere that I was with trusted and people, but it's a big, close collective that was at the last eclipse. And that's who I was with during the eclipse last year. So maybe that had a big part of it too, where I made our bond even more strong. Who knows? I wouldn't be
Definitely.
surprised.
So do you remember a yellow sun?
Yeah, I feel like I do remember a yellow sun.
Okay, because it's just a trip because it's like, and then I don't know if it's a Mandela effect or if it's just sort of part of the transition we're going through.
Mhm.
Another one that I don't know if it's like a Mandela effect or if it's sort of us moving into 5D is Rainbow Mountains. Have you heard of Rainbow Mountains yet?
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh, you got to look up Rainbow Mountains, Rainbow Trees, Rainbow Rivers. They all exist now. I know it sounds crazy, but
I
just look
love
it
it.
up. You're gonna freak out because I'm like, this was not here. We would have totally learned about Rainbow Mountains in school. And when I first heard about it was only at one location. And then and I remember it was like in China. And then I like looked it up one day to show someone, and it had like there was two more locations. I'm like, what? These other two locations weren't here, and I think we're up to like 4 or 5 locations where there's Rainbow Mountains. I'm like, you can see everything transforming right before our very eyes, and no one's noticing it. But the reason it feels like a Mandela effect is because they appear to have always been that way, which is sort of the marker of a Mandela effect. It appears to have always been that way, not like it just happened and everybody's like, oh look, everybody's like, no, it's always been that way. And that sort of makes me wonder if the people that are asleep are one day are going to wake up in 5D and we're going to see all these things have changed, have all these abilities, like our telepathy, sort of a natural thing. And they're all going to be like, oh, it's always been that way. So I don't know. It's a trip.
We'll be like, we envy you because we watched it all happen. Now you're just getting it on a silver platter. But I think the one thing I did notice and have been noticing and kind of tripping me out, and I haven't talked about it, but I've been seeing new bugs and like birds. I've been noticing like they'll just on really high energetic days, like when the Schumann's going off, I'll look outside and I'll see a bird I've never seen before. And I'm just like, what portal did you come out of? Like, is this like what's happening?
Oh, totally. And I've done that same thing. It's funny you said birds because I'm like outside meditating one day and this was last fall. And I look up at the sky. And typically, if you see like a flock of birds, they're like silhouetted, they are black against the sky behind them. So you see these black bird figures moving across the sky. I look up and I see these white figures, bird figures against the sky, like a flock of white birds. And I'm like, what the heck? I never see a flock of white, and they were so high in the sky. I thought I was seeing like spaceships at first. I'm not even gonna lie. I was like trying to like focus, and it was like I realized they were birds. I'm like a flock of white birds. Is this a Mandela effect? And my family. I don't bring it up unless I'm sure anymore because they're like, oh, everything's a Mandela effect to you or whatever. But yeah, I'm noticing the birds, the bugs,
Mhm.
strange, and you can see all these. There's like that iridescence, that sort of rainbow effect on a lot of bugs now that, I don't think were like that before. There's snakes that are iridescent, rainbow looking snakes. I love rainbows. I'm glad I like rainbows because
Yeah.
it's like everything's slowly turning into that.
And the
So
color of everything's getting more vivid, I'm noticing too. Have you noticed that?
totally. Yeah. Yeah. Like the green of the trees and
Yeah.
even the sheen of them seems shinier too.
Mhm.
Like the leaves are shinier than they used to be. Wild stuff. Yeah, it just sucks that no one else notices it. So I don't know. The clouds having that iridescence seems like it could be chemtrails. But at the same time, I'm like, this could be new Earth clouds. You know what I mean? I don't know.
The sky for sure is getting more interesting too. It's so beautiful. It's one of my favorite parts is being in the nature. Like when you're having a crazy day and you're feeling all whacked out, you can still go out in nature and get into that same sort of vibe and pace that it's in. And you're like, oh, everything's gonna be fine. And the bugs come and visit you and the birds and everything. And you're like, this is where it's supposed to be.
Definitely. Yeah, and that's sort of the thing with me. It's I like to get in nature, but I'm in the city all the time. But that's the one way you can just look straight up into the sky. I do
Mhm.
have a few power lines that get in the way, so that kind of ruins the idea that because you can put yourself anywhere. If all you see is trees in the sky, you don't have to be in the city anymore. You can sort of go
Yeah.
anywhere in your mind, and that's beautiful. So, okay, so what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? I do have your links below to your Facebook and your channel. Of course, people should go there and subscribe. I have your Instagram. What's the
Oh, wow.
best?
Definitely the same way. Um, the most reliable way for sure is email, which is ascensiondiaries@gmail.com. Really simple. And Facebook is another big one where I do a lot of interaction with people, and through my personal Facebook, through the page, really anywhere that people like to use whatever social media they prefer, I'm there. So, but
Okay.
easiest is the email for sure. And the Facebook page is a great one too.
Well, awesome. It's been a pleasure having you on here to introduce you to everybody. Everybody, make sure you go and subscribe, and we can sort of bridge this gap, because I've been noticing there's this whole other segment that I need to really get into and start paying attention to, so that we can all come together, because we're all like light workers, and it's a wonderful time to be alive and to be a part of this whole soul family thing.
Yeah, I agree. I love the bridging. We're bridging together all these wonderful communities that have done so much soul work and believe in the magic and have a good time together. I just can't wait to do it more in the physical. And that's my next big goal, which I've spoken about a few times, but I just want to hug the people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, somewhere in the back of your mind, you're like, are these people real? I need to actually meet these people. Yeah.
I want to have a party. Like I'm 24. I want to go to a party with you people. I want to have a good time.
Yeah, we do need to have some meetups, like in little clusters where people can maybe just travel a state over, or, within the time zone, and because I think there's enough of us as we're beginning to gather together that we can at least get a dozen people together. And then it'd be sort of an intimate setting too, with not a lot of people,
Yeah.
so smaller group settings. But, I'm not an organizer that way. I've been trying to organize something here, and I still haven't gotten around to it. It's like, so I am working on it.
Where are our event organizer, Star Family?
Right.
Somebody contact me.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely email me if that's your strong point, because it's definitely not mine.
Mhm.
Well, lots of love and light to everybody in the chat. And thank you again for coming on, Alexis.
Thank you for having me. I'm really glad that I got to do this. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah. A lot of fun.
Mhm.
All right. Peace, everybody. If you'd like to support the work I do, go to paypal.me/UOTF. Thanks.